What's up? Appreciate you tuning in for another episode of East of Eden Exotics. This episode, as I promised in the last, will be featuring my leopard gecko. Guys, I appreciate all the support. Everybody watching these videos, liking the videos. If you will, go ahead. If this is your first time watching, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Guys, stay tuned. This is about the leopard gecko. The Immacularis is the scientific name for the leopard gecko. They are a nocturnal ground-dwelling lizard. They are native to Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Nepal, places like that. They are an insectivore. They are honestly a very good first pet. And as you can see, she's a little stressed out. She doesn't like the light because they are nocturnal. But you can pick them up. They only get to about 8 to 11 inches, somewhere in that area. This is a full-grown adult female. She is absolutely beautiful. Now, she is a little fat. How I acquired this girl is they believed she was either compacted or gravid, and they thought that she needed some help, so they sent her to me. Now, I will have to say this is probably the best starter reptile for children. They are very docile, very good-natured. They're not, I mean, they can be fast if they want to, like, get out of the way in a hurry, but they're not very fast-moving species. Now, these, along with other lizards, if you were to pick her up by her tail would fall off. Like other lizards, it's a defense mechanism. A leopard gecko's tail is so fat, it's a good sign of good health. So if a leopard gecko's tail is little, like the end of this one, and this is how they normally look. Even if they're fat up here, they'll always be little down here. But if a leopard gecko's entire tail is skinny, it means it's not very healthy. And there's something wrong. It's either starving and it's not eating, or something else is wrong. But this little girl... Okay, sorry about that, guys. The camera, I guess with my finger, I turned the camera off on my watch. But what I was saying was their tail is a very good indicator of their health. So you can kind of tell. But they are a very good first-time pet for children. They're very docile. They're numerous benefits. They don't have to be fed and watered every day, so it's a little bit easier to take care of than a dog or a cat. They're a lot smaller, so they fit in a lot of different places, but husbandry wise, they need a good substrate. Do not use sand. Sand will cause compactions. Compactions can kill them, so don't use sand, even though some people recommend that. Don't use like really loose substrate. Some people use carpet, the reptile carpet, which is totally fine. I like using the Reptibark. I like using Reptibark. Reptibark is really good. It holds moisture, and it's not small pieces that they can swallow and get compacted. What else? There's other things. There's tons of other things you can use as a good substrate. Other husbandry, hides, they need a lot of places to hide because they are nocturnal. So it would be good to get them a hide, but if you don't want to use a hide, you don't have to. You can just clutter the entire enclosure with artificial plants, and as long as the ground is completely covered and they have places to hide, hot, medium, and cool on their enclosure will be good. And with speaking of temperature, you want a hot side of 90 degrees, a cool side no colder than 72 degrees, and a middle temperature of about 82. So with that being said, that comes to the type of enclosure that you want to get. Some people say 10, 20, 40. You have to have either one of these, but honestly, 20 and 40 would be perfect. If you're housing more than one, a 40-gallon would be the best bet. A 40-gallon breeder, not a tall tank, and a 20-gallon long tank. 10-gallon would be perfect if it was longer. The reason 10 gallons don't work as well is because it's hard to regulate a hot and cold side, a place for them to thermoregulate their temperature on either side, because a 10-gallon is so small, there's not going to really be a cool side. There'll just be a medium side. It won't be in the 70s. It'll still be in the 80s if you have a hot 90 side. They are nocturnal, so they do not require light. A lot of people like to use lights, and I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just telling you the facts. They do not require light. A lot of people believe they require a 12-hour cycle. This is not necessarily true. There's nothing wrong with you doing it. And a lot of places and people will tell you they need it, but they do not need it. And technically they're not nocturnal. They are, I can't even think of the word, where they only come out dusk and dawn. So they're not out all night long, and they're not out during the day. They only come out at dusk and dawn. So they do not require a UVB bulb. They don't need that type of light to help them process calcium, because the times that they come out, they're not getting the UVB from the sun. If you want to put lights on your enclosure, aquarium, whatever you decide to use, it's okay. But don't use something that's going to put out a lot of heat and mess up your temperatures. So if you want to put a warm light on there that helps with the temperature, put it on the hot side. As long as it's not a powerful heat lamp, you can just use a light bulb, a 20-watt light bulb. And if you want to up your heat and you don't want to use an under the tank heat pad, you can use a ceramic heat emitter on the hot side. You have to put it to where they can't touch it and all that stuff. Most of y'all know this. Do your research on CHE, the ceramic heat emitters, under the tank heat mats, heat pads. If you use either of these, some people use dimmer switches on the CHEs, the ceramic heat emitters. But I would suggest 100% use a thermostat on both. A thermostat controls the temperature of the heat pad and the ceramic heat emitter with a probe. A probe comes off of the thermostat and goes to where, if you're going to use a under the tank heat pad, you need to put it under the tank on the sticky side of the heat pad. That way you can accurately measure the temperature, and then you can adjust your thermostat with what temperature is inside the tank. You can go up or down. It doesn't matter what temperature it's showing on the outside, because it'll get to 90 degrees on the probe before it gets to 90 degrees in the tank. So therefore you need to adjust the temperature and up it a little bit, as long as on the hot side of the tank it does not get over 90 degrees. Now I know people that keep theirs at 80 degrees and they thrive and they live fine, but honestly, they need a hot spot hotter than 80 degrees. 80 degrees should be a mid-ambient temperature in the middle of that graduate temperature, where it goes from hot to cold, or hot to cool. We don't want cold because they're a reptile. But and also the ceramic heat emitter, the same way. You want to put the ceramic heat emitter to where it will not, because looks like a light bulb. It screws into a light socket, but it's ceramic and it heats up and gets really hot. They sell cages for them. You can put in there to where it will not touch the leopard gecko, but it will keep the hot side of your tank the temperature you want it with the probe. So if you do not have a thermostat and your CHE or your UTH plugged into a thermostat, here's what will happen. The thermostat cannot control its temperature, so it's going to go to max temperature immediately. You may be able to pile enough substrate up on it to keep the temperature inside the tank what it needs to be. But here's the problem. When it shorts out, ceramic heat emitters will catch on, or not ceramic heat emitters, under the tank, the UTH, under the tank heaters will catch on fire. They will kill your animal without a regulated heat source. When they get so hot, they will melt things. I have seen aquariums that I bought off of Craigslist that had a UTH under the tank heater glued to the bottom, and the bottom busted of an Exoterra tank, and there are cracks and spider lines running all over the bottom where it got too hot. So just plugging it into the wall is a big risk that you're taking of killing your animal, whether it be a snake, a lizard, anything. You're taking a chance of killing your animal. And if they decide to burrow, it's going to get hotter as they dig down. And a lot of times they don't realize it and they'll burn themselves, especially snakes. Ball pythons in particular will lay on something that will scald them. That's why you can't use heat rocks. Heat rocks are one of the worst things invented. A lot of people try to use them, but you'll end up killing your animals, burning them, causing them all kinds of health problems. What else? Let's think. And moisture, that's the next thing. Moisture. They require moisture to shed. So a lot of people will keep the enclosure moist the whole time. It's not necessarily as important as it is when it comes time to shed. There's a lot of reptiles that's actually that way, but most people want to keep their enclosure 50 to 70% humidity when it's not needed, because very few places in the wild stay 50 to 70% humidity all the time. Rains, gets humid, hot and dry, cold, rainy, dry, cold, dry, hot, dry, cold, humid, hot, humid. So a lot of places are not always humid. In particular, Afghanistan is pretty humid sometimes, but same with Pakistan and those places, but they're also dry. So either way, before they shed, they need moisture. They need calcium. So on their food, before you feed them, sprinkle calcium powder and a little bit of D3 powder. Very little D3 powder, because you can kill them with D3 powder. So calcium D3 powder on the insect that you're feeding them, whether it be roaches, mealworms, anything like that. Just technically don't feed them silkworms, because they're very bad for them. And they can get addicted to them, kind of like a bearded dragon with superworms. You feed a bearded dragon superworms, they're going to die with a fatty liver, because it's like us eating cake all the time. Anything else that I can think of? Not really right off the top of my head. Good first time pet, easy to take care of, eats every 4 days. And that's about it. They're fun to look at. They don't scream and squall, bark, or meow. They don't poop and pee in the carpet. They're very good to take care of, very easy, very good for a beginner. So if someone is looking to get into a reptile in a beginner stage, this would be a good beginner reptile to get into. They don't eat a whole lot. Where a lot of people like bearded dragons are a little more difficult to take care of than most people think. As babies, they eat twice a day. They eat a whole lot. They're not only insectivores, they're also herbivores. So they're both. You have to provide them with vegetables, greens, fruits, and insects. Leopard geckos only eat insects every 4 days. Bearded dragons eat twice a day, every day. Lots of crickets, roaches, whatever you feed them, a lot of it. Like most baby bearded dragons, as they get to a middle stage, or right before you start cutting back their food, they eat 20 to 30 crickets or roaches a meal. Sometimes they'll eat 15 and 15. Sometimes they'll eat 20 and 20. They eat a lot. Either way, guys, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in. If this is your first time watching, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Give us a like. Share the video. Go check me out on TikTok at east_of_Eden. Guys, go check me out. I do a bunch of little bitty things in there. Cool things. Educational things. Either way, you want to know anything, drop a comment. Let's find out what your interests are, what you would like to know, questions you have about these animals, anything about snakes, tarantulas, reptiles in general, arachnids, scorpions, whatever you want to ask me. I'll do my best to answer it. If I can't answer it, I will steer you in the direction of someone who can. Guys, until next time, it's been a pleasure. It's East of Eden Exotics. Bye.